Please give a warm welcome to Mark Moore.
I am so glad, Libertarians, that I was able to help y'all out. We were able, my wife committed to this journey with me to sue the state over their terrible ballot access laws. They already knew they were unconstitutional the day they passed them. They did it anyway just because they thought they could. Well, they couldn't. And I'm glad that that was a springboard that enabled you to beat them. Like after we beat them, because they need lots of beatings. Thank you. Yes, very true. Not that we would initiate force or anything like that. So for years, you've helped me though. You have given me some candidates to vote for. You've given me a reason to show up the polls and vote, even if it was just a protest vote against the increasingly awful candidates offered up by a terminally corrupt two-party system that is destroying our country. And for years, I tried to get people to see that, but a lot of them, they couldn't see that far ahead. And now you do not have to see ahead. You just have to be willing to look around to see it. So it's clear. Both establishment parties are rotten to the core. In truth, some of their local candidates are okay, but the higher you go up the ladder, the worse they get. Is that not the sign of a broken system? That the higher you go, the worse they get? It's a sign of a broken system. So many of our fellow citizens, they are at the stage where they are desperately trying to not see it. Okay? And so if you can break through that, if the tipping point comes with that, then history could be made. You know, very often when history is made, the people that are making it don't realize what's happening. They're doing what they've done for years, and it didn't matter much until it does. And so some of you, this probably is not your first rodeo. You've been doing this for some time, and maybe your expectations about today are shaped by your history. I think that's could be a mistake. I mean, yes, we have to use wisdom. Yes, we have to, and of course, isn't that the trick with humans? You know, using wisdom. But if we do, then this could be one of those turning points. This could be a time when people look back and say, this day, you people, was the start of a new era in Arkansas politics, making history today. And let me give an example of what I mean. Dr. Paco, did you say we would possibly have like 4 to 6 candidates for statewide office? 4 at least?
Yes, that seems to be the case, yes.
Okay. How many do you think the Democrats have?
Hundreds.
They have 1 for governor.
They have governor and senate.
Do you think that's because they think they can win governor? No, nobody can pronounce the name of even one of the candidates, maybe not their own parents.
But 3%.
And then somebody stumbled in and went and filed with Secretary of State. They got 2 candidates for the 7 statewide constitutional offices. Yeah, they have a full slate for the federal offices because they think the federal government is the answer to every problem instead of the cause of a bunch of them. But for the state, they're not even pretending to be a credible opposition party anymore. They're not, the space is empty. They are no longer a deterrent to an increasingly corrupt and thuggish Republican Party of Arkansas. They're no longer a credible deterrent. And on the state level, they're no longer pretending to be, basically. So to the media, to the establishment, to the voters, maybe even to some of you in this room, the Libertarians are a third party. But I would suggest to you that that's not true anymore. The Democrats have ruined their good name, lost all credibility, helped create Donald Trump with their excesses, and refuse to reflect or take responsibility for any of it. So it isn't Republican versus Democrat anymore. You're not a third party because at this point there is no second party in the state of Arkansas. After this weekend, you will have twice as many candidates for statewide constitutional offices as the Democrats. Why aren't you the opposition party? The establishment parties, both of them, they offer the people nothing but more war and more debt and more corruption. That's what they offer, no matter what they say. Only the causes for which they propose to spend your earnings and send your grandchildren off to die are different. That's right. Only the cronies that they propose to enrich from the public purse vary somewhat. That's the difference. There are two establishment parties in Arkansas. One of them is good as dead. Both are collectivists. You are the loyal opposition, so thank you. I'm glad we have a loyal opposition. It's sitting in this room. To turn opportunity into history is going to require wisdom, but in a way I've never seen before in my life, opportunity is present. Now you may ask yourself, if the candidates for the old parties are so bad, why do people keep voting for them? And I think there are a lot of people, potentially votes for Libertarian, they're just concerned about the spending. They're concerned about the growth of government. They're concerned about the government turning us all into debt slaves. They wish the state were smaller, but you know, they're afraid you go too far. They go too far. Well, that's never stopped me from voting Libertarian, and I'm going to tell you why. The natural tendency of government is to grow. Enter every sphere of our existence, leaving nothing for the individual to grow larger and larger and consume more of your earnings and take more of your freedom until you too are helpless and utterly dependent upon its utterly synthetic and dehumanizing compassion. No. You can't go too far, voters. When it comes to limiting government, even if you want government to stay where it is or reduce, you've got to vote for people who are fanatically committed to reducing its scope just to fight the natural tendency of government to grow. Voters, if you elect a wild-eyed libertarian caveman, he wants to smash government spending with a stone axe. He's got a primitive mind. Right? It does not mean there's going to be anarchy in the streets tomorrow. And some of you are probably thinking, well, what's wrong with that? But it doesn't mean that. It just means we've got a good chance to stave off the next tax increase for another 2 years. Right. So the voters need to understand, if you want government to stay here, you've got to vote for people way over there. You've got to vote for liberty. Right. Now, that's one reason. But there's another reason people keep voting for increasingly terrible candidates. They keep making lamer and lamer excuses for continuing to support those terrible candidates. And that's terror. That's political terror. You know, the system is very fond of calling people who do what it doesn't want done, even if it's nonviolent, terrorists. Right. But they use terror. They hit people's fear button to keep them going back to voting for these candidates. They divided America into two large parties. Each of them is convinced if the other side gets all the power, they will destroy the country. They're both right about that. So George Washington, in his farewell address, he saw all this coming, very prescient. And I'm going to read you just a little snippet from that speech. He said of party spirit, "The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual. Sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty." How do you know? father of our country. And I'm not even picking on one establishment party when I say all this. You know, years ago, the Democratic Party dominated Arkansas politics and controlled the machinery of state. And they got corrupt. Now, the Republicans dominate Arkansas politics and control the machinery of state. And they're corrupt. Why? Because history teaches us that one-party rule always goes corrupt. There's no exceptions. There's no... That's the conclusion of all of history. This bunch is not the ones with the virtue to do otherwise than all of history. So all these people, they're working so hard so that their one party can control this vast state apparatus. They're effectively fighting hard for corruption. They're fighting hard for a corrupt state because one-party states are corrupt. It's time for the voters who are not blinded by the very kind of partisanship that George Washington warned us about to give someone else a chance. And you are those people, they need to give a chance. Any honest person can see they're both awful. They're both funded by the same global corporations. It's not even American money buying these elections anymore.
Right.
They're both protected by the same establishment media. Their names show up on the Epstein list with about equal regularity. They're both dirty, but they each have their supporters so afraid and scared and fearful of the other one that they cannot admit the truth about their own side. Not because they're stupid, it's because they're afraid. And that's how the people that run the show want them to be, afraid. I wish I could say that their fears were unfounded. Their fears are not unfounded. The Leviathan state hurts people and breaks things. Even when it shifts its weight around without trying, it does that. Because there's so much power and so little accountability, especially in a one-party system. So we are stuck in this destructive cycle where we're constantly fighting over the one gun that you can hold and point to the rest of your countrymen. And every cycle that happens, we wind up poorer and the government winds up bigger. What's the way out? How can America get off this highway to hell that we are stuck on? I mean, ultimately, I believe the solution is spiritual and not political, but there is a political component. And to the extent that it is political, the solution is right here in this room. The philosophy of liberty is the solution. You libertarians, you got the key to the solution to get us off this division, this civil war, this fear. The key to getting out of this trap is to reduce government. Not a little, a lot, especially the federal government. Reduce it so much, it doesn't matter so much who the president is. It should matter a lot less, or even who the governor is for that matter, if government wasn't involved in so much of our lives and in control of so much of our money. It didn't matter a lot less who ran it, and people could finally relax and quit being afraid of each other. Aren't they tired of being afraid of each other yet? There'd be a lot less government to control. So the answer is not to change the identity of the strong man. The answer is to make it so there can be no strong man. And that's the only answer. And you're the only one saying it. A government that is the answer to every human desire has got to be vast enough to be the source of every human fear. And if they want to live in terror half of their lives, when the other side's got control, and spend the other half of their lives inflicting terror on their neighbors, then I guess they can keep voting for these guys. But we know that's not a worthy use of one's life. It's just not. We call them to a better way. We call them to liberty. For all my life, you function as a protest vote, and that has value, but it's been said that we live in a time when things can go from impossible to inevitable without ever having been probable. Yeah, things can change in a hurry, and the bad guys know it. They know in their heart of hearts what kind of job they've done. That's why they kept changing the election laws. That's why they libel and poison pill ranked choice voting and every other thing that would allow voters to vote their consciences without fear, maybe for the first time in their lives. So that's why we had to keep fighting them and we had to keep beating them, which we did. To enable this day right here to happen, we had to do all that we did over those years because they wanted to close the door. And yet, here you are, possibly about to make history. About to make history. They say you can't win, but in their heart of hearts, they know better. The truth is, the establishment parties can't win because what they want is a vast, powerful central state that somehow stays good. They will never get that. They will never. It is against reality and it is against humanity. So libertarians, Mr. Chairman, let's make history. Thank you. In 2010 or 2012, we got the idea to run as a bunch of people run for the state legislature as independents.
Yeah.
And me and a dozen other guys filed, and I think 7 of us got the signatures and made the ballot. And some of us did pretty well. Like I got maybe 39% in one of the most heavily Republican districts in the state. And it's like Dr. Paco said, what was their response to that? Did they think, oh man, people are upset with us, we better start listening more? No, their response was, oh, we better stop them from doing that.
Yeah.
They got to come to us. So when we started to do the same thing, I went about my life and I did my business, and time was coming around, and I said, okay, well, it's time to get some more candidates to do it again. We've learned more. I think we can do it better this time.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, they had changed the law to where you had to collect your petition signatures in the dead of winter or something crazy like that. And so I looked, and they had already tried that before and had lost a lawsuit doing that before. They said that's unconstitutional. You can't. There's no compelling state interest from making them do that. They don't even have a primary. You can't move their signature period that far back. And so I filed for lieutenant governor, and I got a lawyer. By the way, he's the same lawyer that you guys use. Yeah. Maybe that was from my recommendation. Probably so, okay. So we sued the state, and they had a philosophy of just like throw everything at the wall and see if any of it sticks. I mean, it was like 119 pages long, their complaint. They made every accusation possible. And they caught a rookie judge who at first just couldn't believe the state government would brazenly lie to them. And so he ruled in their favor, and so we had to appeal and go up, and the circuit court was like, hey, judge, these guys just claim things. You can't rule in their favor without giving him a trial, a chance to examine their claims. And so he kicked it back down, and over the intervening years, they kept stalling and doing everything. And by the end of it, I wish I remembered the quote. Oh, okay. By the end of it, he was like, the attorneys for John Thurston made several slanderous remarks about Mr. Moore. These are without merit. And I mean, he was using very strong language. Like, he'd completely come around by the end of it. And he knew what they were. So we won on appeal. And not only did we win, but the door was open to a further lawsuit. And so they tried to get it expunged from the record. Because, see, the game they play it with you too, is they take your stuff and then they make you go to court and give it back. And right before the judge makes a ruling against them and says, oh, okay, we're going to give it back to them. So now it's moot. It's a moot case, it's a moot. And then the judge turns their head and does something else, and they take it again. And that's the game they've been playing all this time. So they lost that game now, because now the door is open. If there was another independent lawsuit, the independents would get the right to skip the party filing process and not even file until May before the election.
Well,
So anyway, that's kind of what happened. That was the situation. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that that helped you guys, because I'm for you.
Yeah, I just amplify something, the interrelatedness of our situations. You know, Moore v. Martin was cited multiple times in our court proceedings. And as a matter of fact, now we've had the law changed so we don't have to file our candidates during the candidate filing period. We have until the spring of the election year. We don't have to come up with 27,000 signatures. These are all the things that Mr. Moore and his colleagues were fighting for all along. And last year in the legislature, there was a bill that would make the status of independent candidates similar to third political parties like ours. The bill was in the hopper. It would remove the filing period. It would eliminate or change the petitioning period. But that never even made it to a committee vote. I had volunteered to the sponsor to testify in favor of the bill, but it never even made it out of committee. So the fight goes on. The fight goes on for independents and third-party candidates alike.